Clematis are one of my favourite flowering climbers, and I've got quite a few around my garden, like Arabella, that's trained up a metal obelisk alongside my patio and reaching about chest height by midsummer, when it will be carrying dozens of these simple sky blue flowers. Or how about the striking Ooh La La scrambling over a camellia in my raised bed to layer on extra colour and interest through the summer months. This lovely blue summer flowering clematis was planted at the base of a Japanese maple, so it could scramble up through the branches to layer on extra colour. And this is something you can do around your garden, using shrubs or trees as natural supports to grow clematis up. I've planted this vigorous but dainty Clematis Etoile rose at the base of my holly hedge, so it can grow up through and over it. Doesn't it look lovely? And even my Concord pear tree has a flowering companion. Dr. Rupel grows up from the base every year and twines into the low branches to produce these magnificent flowers. Quite a spectacle when it's in full bloom. And then there's my newly planted Clematis Multi-Blue that I've positioned against a trellis panel so it will climb up my pergola arch. It's only small at the moment, but it will grow. I garden in the United Kingdom on the eastern side of England in climate zone 8, and all the clematis I feature in this video should flourish in these climate conditions. The lovely thing about clematis is that you can squeeze them into the tiniest of gaps between other plants around the garden, with their feet or their roots in the shade and their heads in the sun, somewhere you can enjoy their flowering display in all its glory. But not only are clematis a firm favourite in various borders around my garden, but I love growing some of the shorter, compact growing and dwarf varieties in large patio pots too. So if you love clematis as much as I do, or perhaps you're new to clematis and are looking for inspiration, then this video will introduce you to the perfect patio clematis to grow in pots, showing you exactly how to grow and care for them to ensure a wonderful display of flowers year after year. And there are dozens and dozens of different varieties of clematis you can choose from, but the dwarf compact varieties are probably the best to choose when you're looking at something for a patio pot that you need to be reasonably self-contained. Of course, you could grow something in a pot and train it onto an archway or a trellis panel, but in a pot like this, I've chosen a little metal spiral support to train the clematis onto, to provide some extra support as it grows up and flowers. And when you're choosing these metal supports, try and choose one with plenty of horizontal or spiral supports on it. Sometimes these metal supports are very sparse and there's not many spokes to train the shoots onto, but this little one is perfect. Pushes down nicely into the pot, is nice and secure, and provides the perfect support for this compact clematis variety. This is Bijou, and isn't it beautiful, with these lovely sky blue flowers, beautiful little boss of sepals in the centre, providing some extra interest. And I love having a few clematis in pots that I can bring out and put in a prime position when they're looking their very best. I know what you might be saying, clematis aren't the longest flowering plant. Their flowering season is shorter than some other plants, but still I think that when they are in full flower, they really steal the show and look magnificent. So choosing a few dwarf compact varieties yourself and growing them on the patio could be just the thing to provide that striking feature, maybe looking its best through May or June or July, particularly these large flowering hybrids that look bold, colourful and really impressive. Short growing clematis are perfect for pots, and that's exactly what I did with Clematis Bijou. This early summer flowering clematis carries mauvey pink flowers with a slightly wavy edge to their petals. You can grow Clematis Pilou in a patio pot to add height and interest to your displays. So I bought small plants in the spring and grew them in a large terracotta pot. Make sure there's a drainage hole in the base of the pot and then add an inch or so of gravel to improve drainage at the base, followed by a peat-free potting compost, filling it up to an inch or so below the rim of the pot. You can mix in some slow-release fertiliser into the compost at this stage if you want to. Next, make a support by putting in some long canes, perhaps 5 to 6 foot tall, pushing these right the way down into the compost around the edge of the pot. About 8 canes should be fine, spaced out evenly around the pot, and tie them together at the top so you produce a rigid frame. I planted 2 Clematis Pilou in my pot, but if you can get a larger plant, then possibly one will do. I planted one on either side. Plant deeply, burying their root balls deeply into the compost. Now gently untwine the shoots from the support canes they're on and tie them onto your new cane framework. Now do work slowly and carefully, as clematis stems are quite brittle and they can easily break, so take your time, tying each shoot onto a different cane with some soft garden string. If the clematis shoots appear too long and tall for your support, then just spiral them into place instead, winding them round and securing them at intervals. Once the compost is firmed around the root balls, water thoroughly to settle the compost down around each plant, and water regularly through warm and dry weather to ensure that the pots don't dry out. Shoots will grow up and carry a lovely display of flowers from around late May through into June. With Clematis Pilou, some of the first flush of flowers can be double or semi-double, and you can see here on the bloom on the left with those extra petals, and each flower measures about 4 inches across. All you've got to do is snip these away once they've faded, and new growth will develop through the summer and carry further flushes of flower later in the season. I've grown a number of clematis in patio pots over the years. And this year on my patio I've got a variety called the Countess of Wessex, which is coming into full flower around about the middle of May. This will go on flowering into June. I've trained it up a little support in this terracotta pot, planted one plant in the pot in the centre, put the frame over the top and trained it up. It's been in here for a few years now. Just needs to be pruned in the winter down to about 6-8 inches from the level of the compost, so you'll get new shoots coming up, and all of this growth has come up this year. Plant them in a nice deep pot so that the roots have got plenty of compost to grow down into, and I just choose a good multi-purpose compost, hopefully one which has got some loam in it, and preferably a peat-free one if you can get it. And these plants grow really strongly. This variety, the Countess of Wessex, was bred by Raymond Everson, and it's one of his Boulevard series of patio clematis. Quite a lot of different colours in the range, so check out the Boulevard clematis. They stay quite short and compact. This variety will grow to about perhaps 4 foot or so in height, so it won't romp away. It's great in a small garden. You could just grow it in one of your borders with a little bit of support, or let it scramble over some of the neighbouring plants and shrubs, but in a pot it will just need a short support. Next to it I've got a variety called Bijou, again bred by Raymond Everson from a Guernsey clematis, and it's one of his Tudor patio series. It's even smaller. It will grow to perhaps a couple of foot in height. I have given it again a little bit of support to take it up, but if you put it in a tall pot you could just let it scramble down and tumble over the sides. It looks really natural and an attractive flowering feature for the patio. Bijou again has a really beautiful flower, and so I'm sure you can find one of these compact clematis which will suit your own colour scheme. Again, one plant has been put in that patio pot. That's all you're going to need to create a little patio feature. The pots themselves are about 13-14 inches across, so a decent sized pot with a decent amount of compost. Clematis in pots will need feeding. Sometimes I'll scatter some slow release fertiliser granules on the surface of the compost, just mix them a little bit, so every time you water from above you're actually watering those fertiliser granules and diluting the feed and going in. Otherwise, just give them a liquid feed. High potash feed is fine, a good balanced fertiliser to encourage good strong roots, leaves and flowers would be good, but something with a lot of potash in it to encourage good flowering. And on a daily basis now, we're coming into summer, I tend to water them from above so that the water will soak down into the pot itself, and then I leave the pot, especially things in terracotta pots, standing in a saucer of water during the day. Lots of people ask when in the day you should water. I wouldn't water in the height of the day unless you really have to. You can top up the saucers in the height of the day, but try not to wet the leaves as you move through into the scorching sun of a summer's day. So again, with the little Bijou over here, water from the top so that the water will just soak down, especially if you put some fertiliser in the pot, and leave the pot standing in a saucer, a reservoir of water, and the plant can take this water up during the day, so it's got that extra reservoir. It just means that once the compost starts drying out, it will soak up the water from the base and keep it well watered. Very easy to care for, very easy to look after. So if you find any of the boulevard or the Tudor, any dwarf growing varieties of clematis available in garden centres near you, or buy them by mail order, then certainly worth considering these to develop your own flowering patio feature. When clematis breeder Raymond Everson first introduced new ranges of compact clematis like the Tudor Patio series and the Boulevard series, I knew we were in for a treat, and I've grown several of them over the years. This is Clematis Cézanne that I planted in a tall pot, and I let it flow and cascade over the sides. Train it up a support and it can reach 3, maybe 4 foot in height once established, when it will produce a succession of these pale blue flowers over a long period. It's really floriferous and good for small gardens and patios, especially growing in pots. Corinne is another compact clematis in a Boulevard series that I've planted in a tall pot with a short metal spiral obelisk support on top. And when it reaches the top, it starts twining its way into my golden jasmine on the trellis screen behind, reaching perhaps 3 or 4 foot in height. Its white petals are tinged pink, with a large clump of dark stamens in the centre, really adding to their impact. Corinne will grow well in shade too. To my eye, Clematis Countess of Wessex is quite similar to Corinne. It was first introduced at the 2012 Chelsea Flower Show, and it has near white petals, flushed pink, and is compact and very free flowering. Bijou is really dwarf, compact, non-climbing clematis bred by Raymond Everson for his Tudor Patio series. Great in pots where it can spill over the edges. It grows up in the spring to form a leafy mound about 1 foot or so high, producing really showy bluish violet flowers through into summer. Another in this series is filigree with very pale blue petals, which is slightly taller growing than Bijou, so can benefit from a little support, although left without it, it will spread and tumble beautifully. Both these clematis prefer a little shade, and they're compact. They'll grow well in hanging baskets, or perhaps even at the front of a rockery or a border. And pruning is simple for all these compact Tudor and Boulevard clematis, cutting all of last year's growth back to about a bud or a few inches from ground level in late winter, usually about the end of February for me. Clematis Volunteer was first released in 2016 to honour the work done by volunteers worldwide. Again, it's a compact clematis, very free flowering, producing these gorgeous lilac pink flowers with a deeper pink band, giving them an attractive bicolour effect. and a bold bunch of yellow central stamens right at the centre of each flower. As with all clematis, the deep colouring is more pronounced when the blooms first open and they gradually fade over time. Volunteer is perfect for patio pots and small courtyard or patio gardens. I've planted Clematis Ooh La La in my ericaceous raised bed between a camellia and rhododendron and a hydrangea, so it twines up through them as it grows to layer on extra colour, especially as we move through to the end of June and into July. I don't train it, I don't touch it at all. I let it just scramble over the shrubs, using them as a natural support. And this bed is in a slightly shady position, a position this clematis loves, producing these extremely large flowers up to about 5 inches, 12 centimetres across, in mauvish pink with a vibrant, broad, deep pink band down the centre of each sepal. And just a word in your ear, you might sometimes find Ooh La La listed under its pseudonym, an alternative name of Cherokee. And just take a look at Clematis Darcy, another in the Tudor Patio series, dwarf growing to about 2 foot, producing really large, deep, dusky pink flowers in summer. Again, Darcy actually prefers a site in partial shade rather than in full sun, and this helps to maintain its lovely deep flower colour, growing into a nice mound once it's established. And this is another clematis I've got growing in a pot. Again, a dwarf growing variety. Just trading this one up on this metal support. You can see how the leaf stalks just twine their way in and grip on. You can tease the tips of the shoots in if you need to, but again, be very, very gentle because they're brittle and they can snap very easily. Again, it's in a terracotta pot, in a saucer, and I can just top this up with water and leave that nice reservoir of water to provide the plant with the water it needs on hot summer days. And this will probably be flowering around about June time and give you a nice display, a little bit of height next to my garden bench alongside the golden hop, which is trained up over my pergola arch in my garden. Starting to flower from late May into June, again in early autumn, Clematis Tumani is another in the Compact Boulevard series with large mauvey purple blooms with a deep purple stripe down each sepal. Give it a short frame to cling onto and it can grow to about 4 to 5 foot in height and look lovely in a large pot. And Clematis Duchess of Cornwall has great repeat flowering performance through summer, reaching perhaps 4 to 5 foot in height. These deeply coloured violet purple blue flowers are really striking, but deadhead promptly to encourage more growth and you'll get more flowers. And a Lodi is my last recommendation from the Tudor Patio series, a lovely dusky pink, almost mauve variety, only growing to 1 foot or so in height, so it won't need any sort of support at all. And it's fully hardy in the UK and hardy in zones 4 to 9 in the States. Its flowers are large and it blooms early, having real impact when in full flower. For slightly later blooms from around July into early autumn, try the unique Clematis Florida Taiga. Flowers can vary in shape and colour, but these large palm-sized deep purple blue double flowers have creamy green tips to their sepals. And these create a bold cream centre to each flower before the sepals slowly peel back and open to create an impressive display. Taiga is a taller growing variety, but it can be grown in a large pot if it's provided with a tall frame to clamber up. It was bred in Japan, where Taiga means a large river, or possibly a tiger, depending how you say it, and it was the public's favourite when it was first launched at the Chelsea Flower Show in 2017. I've shown you quite a few clematis in this video, so hopefully this has shown you just how varied this glorious family of flowers can be, whether in terms of flower size, colour or form, or even how tall or compact their growth can be, but also the different times of year they bloom too. Now, if you only have a tiny garden, then do check out Clematis Little Lemons, a lovely little variety that has similar gorgeous bright orange peel flowers to the very vigorous growing Clematis tangutica, like varieties Bill Mackenzie and so on. However, while most varieties of Clematis tangutica need a tall wall or a pergola to clamber up, Little Lemons is perfect in a small pot. Only growing to about 18 inches or so in height, Little Lemons will make a lovely patio feature. And once those brilliant flowers fade, they will transform into these feathery seed heads that are carried on the plant well into autumn. And lastly, there's one traditional saying about clematis that's worth keeping in mind, and it goes something like this: in the first year they sleep, in the second year they creep, but in the third year they leap. And in the words of another saying, all good things come to those who wait. So with clematis, in that first year they can just sit and not do much, only starting to put on growth in their second year. But be patient, in that third year they should romp away and flower profusely. So, as with many things in the garden, patience is a virtue. And if you love clematis as much as I do, then do check out my other clematis videos that you'll find at Adam's Gardening Guides for more advice on choosing, growing and pruning clematis around your garden. I'd love to hear which ones you grow too, so please add a comment below to share the names of your favourite varieties with other viewers. After all, there's nothing better than having varieties recommended to you by someone who has actually grown it and loved it. Thank you. So there you are, some simple steps you can take to plant a clematis variety in a pot and produce a striking feature for your own patio. I do hope that it inspired you to give these beautiful flowering climbers a fresh look. Search out some dwarf compact varieties at your local plant centre, or maybe go to one of the specialist clematis nurseries online. See what you can find, choose a variety that suits your colour scheme and give it a go, planting up a flowering feature to provide some height and impact and wow you through the flowering season, to provide that extra interest on your own patio.